Hey, how's it going? I'm Dr. Josh Satterlee from Clinic Gym Hybrid, and today I want to show you the 7 best tools that you can use to set up a pod type gym in your existing clinic. So we hear from a lot of people that want to set up a gym in their clinic, which we're all about. That's why it's called Clinic Gym Hybrid. Crazy, I know. But it's great. We want to see you implementing exercise, and your patients will absolutely love it. But usually people, when they're starting out, have just a few hundred square feet in their office. And so what I wanted to cover today was some tips I have for the 7 most important tools and some ways to save yourself some money and space. Space is the toughest thing to come by. So if you're just starting out with 200 square feet, 400 square feet, maybe you can eke out 700 square feet, I want to show you what to do. So we call this a pod style gym, just a super efficient use of space. So first things first, the most important thing you have in your office is floor space, just open space. It is so easy to build extra walls and stuff, and if you can just have some open space, you can do a ton of exercises, all right? So if you have the open space, or once you do, you also want to make sure that you have a floor covering, something soft for people to use. I'm going to have the cameraman pan down. This is just a huge yoga mat. It's like a extra long, extra wide yoga mat. Found it on Amazon for $120. On this concrete floor, we're just in my garage right now. This is where I work out with my family. You know, it's got a hard concrete floor, which a lot of clinics do. You want to have something where people can get down and kind of use their hands if you're into some DNS rehab or animal flows, or even just people's elbows as they're rehabbing. You want to be comfortable, all right? Another thing I really like are these, I think they're made by Spree. Yeah, S-P-R-I, Spree. They're really thick exercise mats. They're really thick, and what I like about these is if somebody is kneeling and maybe they're weaker and they're really hitting the ground kind of hard, these really pad it without taking up too much space. And then the other thing I love is you'll see these big eyelets. There's a storage rack, so you can store these vertically up against the wall to preserve some space. But either way, you want to have open space and you want to have some sort of soft covering. Now maybe you have a carpet or something like that in your office that works well. Totally cool, but make sure it's something people are willing to get down on the ground for. All right, so that's the first thing. The second thing you need if you want to build a pod-based gym is weights. I'm a huge fan of kettlebells. In fact, I would get kettlebells before I'd get dumbbells, okay? You want to have some various sizes. You'll see here, just my collection I have at home. They're cast iron, they're beefy, they never need maintenance. I've kicked them, stepped on them, run them over in a truck, dropped them. Hell, you could set them on fire and nothing's going to happen to them. But people use them in rehab and start getting very resilient, very bulletproof when they're dealing with that external weight. I like kettlebells. There's a lot of features I could go over of why I like those so much, but find a company that is reputable. They're heavy, they're expensive, and so the best thing you can do is look for like Black Friday deals and specials. If a place is willing to give you free shipping, then use that. But that's the tool number 2, a nice big batch of kettlebells. Now, as far as weights, I think you want to have a few very light weights, like a couple 10 to 12 pound kettlebells, then a couple 18-pound kettlebells. Then you get into this 26 point something weight. I would have a pair of those. You can start out and just having one of each, but a pair of them makes it really good. Then I would have a pair of 35s, a pair of 44s, and then every weight above 44, so 53, 68, 70, just have one of each. It's rare in 400 square feet that you're going to need much more weight than that. If you start assembling more than probably 8 of them, get yourself a rack. What I do with these is I just line them up on my workbench here that's also storage for extra stuff, and it's fine. But if I had 16 kettlebells, I couldn't do that. One tip too with the kettlebells, you know, when you're doing rehab, you are probably very experienced in exercise, but your patients and your clients, they're not, okay? So you can look at a kettlebell and know its weight, but they may not be able to, especially early on in the relationship. So make them feel good and make it super explainable. Here's a tip. Get a paint marker, an oil-based Sharpie, and just write the weight on every kettlebell. So I wrote 27 on there, or you can just fill in the blanks of that area with some white paint so they know what weight they're dealing with, okay? I really like kettlebells for this. So that's number 2. Number 3 tip I have, you want to build this pod-based gym. Super efficient use of space. Don't buy a squat rack. don't buy a squat rack. It just takes up too much square footage. But you want a lot of advantages that a squat rack provides. So the number 3 thing I say is install a wall mount pull-up bar. This is great. People can do pull-ups. You can use it as an anchor point. You can do a lot of exercise, but you also preserve all this space that doesn't get taken up by uprights like you would if you had a squat rack. So a nice strong pull-up bar. This one is from Titan Fitness. I paid about $120 for this. You bolt it into the wall. Obviously make sure you find the studs. But it's just bulletproof. You can adjust its width. There's little bolts here if you want it narrower or wider. And it's a great anchor point. You can see we have stuff hanging off of it. We got bands. Got all sorts of stuff here, and it's a great, great feature. But it does that, and it preserves all this wall space. So you could have a bench here. You can move things out of the way. You could store kettlebells here without taking up that space like a squat rack would. One more thing, as you're building this, make sure you have enough space between your pull-up bar and the ceiling. The first time I installed this, I only had about 6 inches of space. I did my first pull-up, hit myself in the head, and it reminded me that I was a dumbass. So that's great. Anyways, yeah, I think about 2 feet between the ceiling and here, if the ceiling is low. But basically, the way I think about it, take a 6-foot tall guy, 6'2", have him reach up, and that's about where you want it. So I'm 6'4", so this is a little bit lower, but that way it's out of everybody's way. They don't get stabbed in the eye, but everybody can reach it. All right, so a wall-mounted pull-up bar, or multiple. If you can have multiple of these pods, you're in a good shape, okay? So that's number 3. Number 4, we want a lot of advantages. We want to be able to do a ton of exercise. Number 4 thing I find, a flat bench. This is my favorite flat bench, the Rogue Fitness Flat Bench 2.0. It's just a solid piece. I weigh close to 300 pounds. This thing doesn't even sag. It doesn't even blink when I put all my weight on it. I've had multiple people standing on this. There's no issue. Now, why do I like the Rogue one? Number 1, it's not tippy. I've had a few that are pretty tippy. Number 2, it's a little bit longer than normal. And I really like that for a lot of reasons. Exercise-wise, a tall person can do 1-arm rows, right? But the other thing I like is at the end of class, these benches, when they're a little bit longer, people congregate and they kind of talk about their day. And our clinic gym instructor, Kurt Kippenberger, calls it the Starbucks effect. You want people to finish that workout and want to hang out with you, want to hang out at your place, and that's what builds those relationships, and they stick around as members for years. Really easy to run a business if people are signing up for years. But a flat bench. Don't worry about an incline one at this point. If you're just starting out, this flat bench, you can put it up against the wall. Once again, if I don't have those squat rack uprights, I can move it over here. And heck, if I need to, it can help people get up onto the pull-up bar. Flat bench. All right, number 5 thing, if you're gonna run a pod-based or pod-type gym in your existing clinic and you're short on space, great tool that gets a ton of use is rings. Why rings? A TRX would also work. A TRX is a fantastic item, but suspension training, whether it's with rings or the TRX, it works. You can do core work like fallouts. You can have people do some mobility drills vertically, right? We can also turn around, and people that are rehabbing a knee or something can use this as an anchor point to assist with them going down in a lunge. There's just a ton of uses for a set of rings. I really like rings. The wood never seems to get too sweaty. It never gets slippery when it gets sweaty. Not everything's like that, but I like the wood rings rather than steel or plastic. I like these. The only thing you can't use rings for that you can use a TRX for is hooking the feet up. But I just do that so little, I don't think it's a big deal. Another tip, I really like this style. This is double circle. It has these numbers on it that tell you what level I'm connecting to. So these are both connected to the 5, right? Immediately I know how high that is. Or I can take out this loop and connect it somewhere else. This style is so much better because you don't end up with a strap. I don't like the endless strap kind where they're just, as you get them higher and higher, there's a pile of straps sitting down here you have to do something with. It becomes a tripping hazard. I really like this style. Now, again, I'm a big guy. I can't even get one of these to flex at all. So double circle rings, $50 on Amazon, good deal. And again, I like the wood ones. They come with these big, tough carabiners. You attach them to the pull-up bar. Things are looking good. So that takes us, that's our 5th. Number 6, so if you want to build a pod-type gym in your office, super efficient use of space, be able to run both classes and rehab, the number 6 tip, bands. Man, the other thing I like about these, I can just slide them over. All right, bands. You're going to need skinny bands. You're going to need thick bands. You're going to need multiple thick bands. You're going to start assembling bands like crazy, but they have a ton of uses. They can make things more difficult. They can make things more challenging. But get a selection of bands. And if you're going to be doing pull-ups with people, like we do, you know, and a guy my size comes in your office, you're probably going to need some super thick ones, right? The only tip I have on bands, get them wherever you want, but always buy from the same provider, because it's tough to tell your patient, hey, grab a red band. Well, look, there's a thick red band and a thin red band. They're going to be confused. That's because I'm mixing and matching suppliers of bands. If you want them all to be always the same color, get them from one supplier. Now, this is one of those things you're going to replace them all the time. They break, they stretch, they wear out. Man, they snap sometimes, but par for the course, you're going to need a ton of bands. One of my favorite types of bands for rehab is this. It's called the FMT band, or lovingly called the Gray Cook band. I think this is the best tool in rehab, but this band alone is like 50 or 60 bucks. I would travel with these, throw it in my backpack. I've used the heck out of these. They're amazing. Highly recommend you get a selection of these for more rehab than exercise, but they are absolutely incredible. They have these loops for feet, an anchor point, everything. Absolutely amazing. Get tons of bands, all right? Now, where are you going to attach those bands? So, number 7 tip, if you want to build a pod-type gym in your clinic, you need some wall anchors. What are wall anchors? Well, you need somewhere to attach these bands so I can pull down. What if I want to lift up? What if I want to go lateral? So since we don't have the squat rack, the only disadvantage here is that we don't have the upright post that can be a bunch of anchor points. So instead, what I've done is I've installed these anchors. These are the TRX style anchors, okay? You can get them on Amazon about 25 bucks. I really like them. Bolt them to the stud, and then you do need a carabiner to attach to them. But I just attach there, and I can come out here and do, say, a Pullup press, right? I have that so I can do some rotational work. I have it a little bit low here, but I would have one. So this is your high anchor point, your pull-up bar. You have your mid anchor point, and then you can see we have a low anchor point there that also doubles as a battle rope attachment, okay? So you want to have those anchor points. Let me show some alternatives. So we have our high anchor point. If we don't have a pull-up bar there, we have our mid anchor point. You can also have one down low, okay? So you can attach here, attach there, and I can do anything. I can use the band for some Pullup presses, again, some rotational work. I can use them to assist with lunging, right? There's tons of ways to use these. I really prefer this style in a pod type gym. Couple reasons why. Number one, it's smooth. So if anybody is leaning against the wall and backs into it, they're not going to get poked, torn, scraped, or anything like that. It's smooth. The other type I used to use was this. It's called an anchor gym. So 2 disadvantages of this. I don't know if you can see it there. And it has that little bar to keep bands from falling. Advantage, super fast. If it's mounted up, I don't need the carabiner, and I can just super fast put a band on there, right? The disadvantage is it pokes people, and for whatever reason, people in the gym, your clients, they'll just hang things on this. I found like multiple times people are hanging their coats on this like a coat hook, and it's like, dude, that's an anchor point, right? Also, these are very expensive. They're all 2 or 3 times the cost of those, so I stick with those TRX style anchor points. But those anchor points will allow you to have a lot of different options in the gym. So again, we want to help you design a very efficient gym. Maybe it's in the back of an existing clinic. 200, 400 square feet is amazing. You can actually run classes through that. Keep the space open. With open space, you can turn it into clinic space when you're not using it as a gym. But keep it open, and then these 7 tools will allow you to use have the most impact, the most efficient use of space without breaking the bank and without committing all that space to a squat rack or 2. All right? So again, I'm Dr. Josh Satterlee from Clinic Gym Hybrid. Thanks so much for watching, and I would love to see pictures of your gym. Thanks so much for checking out these videos. I hope they're useful. We'll cover things like rehab, exercise, business model, progressions, layout, everything else that helps you build a clinic. So if you're interested, you can click here, there, to get more videos just like this.